Welcome back, adventurers, once again to Let's Play ChäoS Head. In the last episode, Takumi Nishijou was carrying the lifeless body of his original counterpart, Shogun, who miraculously is still alive, although how long that remains true remains to be seen for much longer. But as fortune would have it, Takumi wasn't actually too far away from where Momose and the others had collapsed when the road fell through, and pretty much as a result, he is reunited with Ayase, Yua, and at long last, his younger sister Nanami. But meanwhile, over at the Nozomi headquarters, Rimi Sakihata is still being held by Ganeshi Narose. That was the price she paid for Nanami's freedom, if not necessarily her safety. Her memories were muddled. Nanami Nishijou sensed it. Oh, I thought this was Rimi for a second. I guess I was wrong. Her brother's words served as the trigger, heralding in Nanami's heart the sensation that she had two brothers. No, she has one brother, in two different forms. Not, it seemed like she had to. She had to. She had flashbacks to the faces of her two brothers. One was pathetic seeming, one was all wrinkly. On the other hand, she was positive she only had one sibling. That's because she does. Her memories and what she recognized, they weren't matching up. What had been reality? What had been an illusion? So I guess together, Shogun and Rimi have been responsible for manipulating the current quote-unquote reality. That is to say, the events over at Sume Academy concerning the other Takumi Nishijou. But the threads of fate are unraveling and coming together at the same time. Unknowing, she became frightened, and as she tried to make the inside of her head go blank, suddenly she heard her own voice coming to her like tiny ripples on water. You've got to keep yourself together. Before she knew it, Nanami was standing in a hallway that shone with the light of sunset. A hallway that is right at the heart of the hospital. The scent of disinfectants pricked at her nose. In front of her was a plain-looking door. Nanami was holding its handle, and without her will having any bearing on it, her hand opened the door. And so the original events finally play themselves out.
ちゃんと食べてっていつも言ってるじゃん。出ないと元気になんないよ。あ、もしかしてグリーンピースが入ってるから？子供じゃないんだし、いい加減好き嫌いやめたら？そりゃな ナナだってグリーンピース嫌いだから残したくなる気持ちはわかるけど、ちゃんと食べてくんないとナナが怒られるんだからね、あの怖い看護師長さんに。
Unfortunately, I don't think that it's that Shogun's dislike of green peas was entirely authentic. That what I'm trying to say here is that unfortunately, this is a point where the time dilation of being a gigalomaniac ultimately caught up with the original Takumi Nishijou. And would continue to do so up until the present day. But it seems as if Nanami actually had kind of like a spider sense, if you will. It seems like she picked up some unsettling vibes from Shino Hazuki. And given what we know now, for very good reason.
Nanami.
何？
今まで辛く当たってごめん。
Because even though he was an incredibly powerful gigalomaniac, and even though he was being heavily riddled by the time dilation and the negative consequences therein, the original Takumi wasn't entirely that different from his counterpart, at least in terms of temperamental behavior.
お兄が謝るなんて珍しいじゃん。
Unfortunately, Nanami Takumi had a lot to apologize for.
もう僕のために無理をする必要はないんだ。
何言ってるの？
On the one hand, it could be read that Takumi, much like his alternate counterpart, was pushing Nanami away. But that couldn't be further from the truth. In the end, Takumi Nishijou just wanted to protect Nanami, no matter what.
僕は身を隠さなくちゃならなくなった。だからお前はもうここには来なくていい。
Indeed, Shogun knew that Ganishi would come for him, and so he wanted to get Nanami out of harm's way. But unfortunately, the best laid plans do not always go so well.
何のつもり？
さようなら。
Unfortunately, at the time, he had no means to actually tell her of everything. Not then, at least. Her memories became cut off there. The fact that she had a real brother, the fact that she had poured her heart into nursing her severely ill older brother for years, the fact that she'd gone on straining herself thinking she had to be in there and be dependable to take care of him. Unfortunately, as earnest as her efforts were, Nanami Nishijou, nothing you do would ever be able to save Takumi from reaching his end. Up until this moment, for a whole year and a half, all those things had completely slipped out of her memory. Indeed. Beforehand, it could have been argued that Rimi and Shogun had created an entirely different reality, not just an alternate Takumi Nishijou, but an entirely alternate Shibuya as well. But that isn't the case. The only alternate is Taku. Everything else, from Yua to Nanami, and yes, even Ganeshi Narose, they're all the originals. This isn't an alternate reality. Those memories were made never to have been there in the first place. And in their exchange, her brother was healthy, living on his own in Shibuya. The unfortunate life of a Shadow Otaku. Her mother had requested that she go check on how he was doing periodically, and once in a while on the way home from school she'd stop by his room. Except of course, as we all know, that was merely a delusion provided by Shogun. She made herself think that it was a perfectly ordinary custom of theirs, a continuation of the past, and that she did it because they were family. She hadn't experienced any doubts whatsoever. Neither, for that matter, did Takumi.
どうしてナナは忘れちゃってたんだろう。
Because there was no other choice. But now, we've reached the crossroads yet again. 30 minutes after she was rescued from being buried alive, Nanami finally reunited with her real brother, the true Takumi Nishijou, Shogun. He was lying on the road. He was breathing, but he wasn't conscious. As always, he was wrinkly and small and all dried up and looked very feeble. This was the brother Nanami had always known from long ago.
こんなのひどいよ。
Indeed it is, but that's just the way things unfolded.
ナナはお兄に文句ばっかり言ってたけど。
And yet, while you believed that you were shouldering his burden, in reality, Shogun was bearing yours. She spilled tears as she clung to her brother's diminutive, numb body.
お兄のこと一度だって忘れたいなんて思ったことなかったのに。
And yet it had to be done. But, given what has transpired, it's all rather moot at this point.
勝手だよ。わがまますぎだよ。
True as that may be, it was all done to try and protect both Nanami and Rimi. A sound like the scraping of metal came from her brother's clothing. Something went slipping out of his breast pocket.
あ、
It was what Nanami had been looking for all along. Something that had left her when she lost her right hand. The bangle given to her by the other Takumi Nishijou. A cheapish bangle with a pattern of snow crystals. Bewildered, she stared at her true brother's face, but his wrinkle-covered eyes remained shut. So Shogun removed it. But, unfortunately, while Nanami may have recovered the bangle, The matter of her right hand is an entirely different story. Nanami picked up the bracelet with her left hand. It felt familiar to the touch. The first present she had ever received from her brother, air quotes. It was her treasure. Nanami lifted her gaze, unconsciously seeking out the figure of her other brother. He had his back to her, a long sword in his hand. The Takumi Nishijou that Shogun might have been, and yet never was. He was walking away. He was leaving this place. Nanami understood that intuitively. She became forlorn at the thought that maybe he meant to leave without saying anything to her.
言っておいで。
Knitting her eyebrows, Nanami took a quick glance around. Though he may not be able to interact with the physical world, Shogun has learned a thing or two from the likes of Kozue Orihara.
今声が
It was the voice of the brother in her memory, a voice reaching her heart from he who should have been unconscious.
彼は僕と一心同体。もう一人のお兄なんだから。
Nanami didn't know if it was a voice her brother had emitted, or else merely an auditory hallucination. The answer is both, but even then,
うんわかった
she said to her brother, lying prone. Rising, Nanami walked up toward her older brother's back. Her body couldn't muster any strength. And yet, the fact that she herself is now cognizant of her surroundings is a sign that her recovery might yet go well. For days she'd been pinned up to an eerie object dart, in a pitch-black room forced to experience horrific suffering. She had no idea how many times she thought of dying. Her right hand, especially. The powerful pain in it had continued incessantly, like there was a huge flea stuffed in her bone gnawing it down. The sensation that she didn't have a hand and the hallucination that she did mixed and collided, almost driving her crazy. She was exhausted both mentally and physically. She let her guard down. She crouched right where she stood and be rendered unable to take another step forward. Which was why Nanami had to fight desperately to keep stretching out her hand. She wanted to hold her brother so much to the point of putting in such an effort.
待って
When she had just barely managed to squeeze out her voice, he noticed. He stopped and turned back in her direction. She succeeded in stopping him, but Nanami was torn about how to address him. The reality that this person wasn't her brother, the conviction that this person was her brother. Those two feelings became hopelessly entangled, and she couldn't put her emotions in order on a moment's notice. But such is the state of affairs. Except the bangle she held in her left hand. Though cold to the touch, it was a gift from him, and it warmed her heart. She felt like the six bangles' existence tied the two of them together. She was fine with that being the sole answer. Her confusion soon vanished.
お兄は本当のお兄じゃないかもしれないけど、頼りにならなくておたくさんで、アニメキャラもお人形さんばっかり集めてて、口が悪くて愛想もなくて意地悪なことばっかり言うけど、お兄もナナのお兄だよ。
Struggling to keep herself from crying, Nanami smiled with all her might.
ありがとう、ナナミ。
Her older brother showed her a bashful expression. The instant she felt relief, Nanami's consciousness began gradually receding into the distance. As Nanami staggered and seemed about to topple over, I hastily caught her. She'd gone unconscious. Her face was as white as a sheet. Her breathing too sounded painful. Yeah, Nanami needs medical attention. And unlike Shogun, she can be saved.
早く病院に運ばないとこのままじゃ危ないわ。
And, speaking of consciousness, glad to see that you're awake there, Momose. Said the plump woman who had introduced herself as Momose, looking into Nanami's face and speaking gravely. Next she turned her eyes on Shogun.
そっちに寝かせてる子もね。
Not quite the same. Then again, we have there's no point in bringing Momose up to speed. I entrusted Nanami to Momose-san.
二人を頼みます。
あなたはどうするの？
There's only one thing to do at this point.
探さなくちゃいけない人がいて。
Noatu's location. I tried asking Nanami, but she told me she wasn't sure where she'd been held captive. That's understandable. The only thing I could do was to search for the person called Hatano after all. And there's also the matter of Senna. Don't forget that.
必要なことなのね、グラジオールを倒すために。
It means, defeating Ganishi. Finding Hatano is what matters right now.
グラジオールか。
If you were to rephrase it as Noah too.
うん、そうだよ。
Ayase's expression went tight. She took a step closer to me, dragging one of her legs slightly. It seemed as though she really were wounded, although that is probably in heart instead of just body.
一緒に行くわ、私も。
その必要はないよ。
I think you're going to need all the help that you can get in defeating Ganishi and Noah too, Takumi. Even after I told her so, Ayase shook her head in refusal.
7人集まらないと。
Except that Nanami is in no state to aid us.
綾瀬も、それに岩も。畑野っていう人を探してほしい。
And I voiced Yua's name. I saw the very girl in question who'd been shrieking back behind Momose jump a little, her shoulders trembling.
その人がノア2の場所知ってるから。一緒に行動しなくても僕はみんなの見聞きしたことがわかる。
Indeed.
だから今は手分けして探して。
For the moment, I thought it was the best possible strategy. We had to hurry. There was no guaranteeing our safety if another earthquake took place. A fourth melt.
分かった。
They said, and she lowered her eyes regrettably.
なんだかよくわからないけど、
Best leave it be for the time being, Mose.
野呂瀬源一が全ての黒幕です。
Indeed he has. Manipulating Nozomi, the Church of Divine Light, the Meiwa Party, and the entirety of the New Gen madness. But Mose knows that name, as well she should.
そういうこと。それなら妹さんたちのことは私に任せなさいな。
Glad to see that we have an understanding there, Momose. Momose-san thrust out her chest and nodded as though to encourage me.
ただし無茶しちゃダメよ。
Little too late for that. Because Ganeshi has thrown down the gauntlet with Noah 2 and the third melt. To deal with him, one cannot simply arrest him and put him in jail. Both Noah 2 and Ganeshi Narose must be
それと一
destroyed.
つ頼まれてほしいんだけど。ばんちゃん、ヘラヘラ笑ってるうさんくさそうな中年刑事を見たら私に連絡するように伝えてくれる？
Is she talking about Yasuji-ban? Indeed she was. I knew that he died, shot to death by his partner, Mamoru Suwa, because I unconsciously witnessed the moment when it happened. I was about to convey this to Momose-san, but...
まったくあの人はこんな時にどこをほっつき歩いてるんだか。まあ案外どこかで怪我人を助けてるのかもしれないけどね。
We'll do our utmost. Momose, we'll do our utmost and we'll leave it at that. Since Momose-san had said such things, I found myself unable to tell her. Yasuji-ban is dead, murdered, and he is not coming back.
というわけでよろしく。
はい。
I nodded without meaning to. At a promise that was 100% impossible to fulfill. But I couldn't think of how else to answer her.
西条くん。
And at last we come to Yua. Yua, head lowered, spoke in a voice as weak as a fly's rasping. I noticed that she'd been peeping at me timidly for a while now, as though looking as if she were about to say something.
あなたのこと疑ってごめんなさい。
Well, Takumi was a suspect, not the suspect. You were kind of on the right track. And you were also unconsciously right about Takumi and Shogun being one and the same. Of course, that significance will be forever lost on you.
私、西条くんを傷つけるようなこと言って。
The lens of her glasses, considerably soiled with dust. Behind them, her eyes were surely wet with tears.
謝っても許してもらえるとは思ってないです。
think it's all water under the bridge. Your heart was in the right place.
それでも謝らせてください。
And of course, because he observed everything, even unconsciously, Takumi Nishijou knows full well the pain that Yua Kusunoki has gone through,
ごめんなさい。
and what drove her to Takumi to begin with. She bowed deeply to me. I turned my back on her without saying anything. Because there is nothing more to be said.
僕のベースにあるセイラのフィギュア
Or maybe not.
はい。
よかったらもらってくれる
As if the Kurenai building is still intact. And more like, yeah. Given this earthquake, everything in the base is probably completely shattered. There'd been a shock when she deceived me. Now I understood her circumstances. Which was why if I said something like, I'd forgive you, I'd start to see myself conversely as being presumptuous. I thought you was my enemy all along. I didn't possess the right to have her lower her head to me or to forgive her.
いいんですか？
They're probably incredibly broken and tattered right now, but they're yours.
もらってほしい
はい。はい。また一緒にフィギュア買いに行きましょうね。
At last it returned to Yua, a gentle smile like the one she'd worn when we met for the first time. I nodded at her words. I exchanged wordless looks with my Ase and Momose-san as well. I seared the images of Nanami and Shogun into my eyes one last time. I began walking alone through the mountain of rubble to find Issei Hatono. And that is going to bring an end to this episode of Let's Play ChäoS Head. And when we return, adventurers, the search for Issei Hatono begins. As always, until next we meet.